Now the tower is a very unique icon for Coppell. What was the inspiration behind this?
The tower itself was actually presented very early on to the community and to city staff particularly. But because the city has a design ordinance which tends to require reference to historical architecture, what we had initially shown was a clock tower there, which was very traditionally imagined. And so after we were commissioned to do the project, we continued to show something in that place, in that part of the site. But it wasn't necessarily the tower that we have there now. And it was only after the development of the site, I think, thinking about how it ought to become, what it ought to become, is when we began to think of the tower as something quite different from a traditional clock tower that marks each hour of the day.
Well, let's talk about the progression of the tower design.
The towers that we see around Dallas were used as, we considered them as precedents, but we didn't want to use any one of those types. We see towers connected to churches, we see towers at the entrance to residential buildings, residential developments, I'm sorry, and towers of other types. But we felt, because Coppell had only one chance to make its mark, to celebrate this 50 years of incorporation, that we should create something that's unique to Coppell. So we began to consider a tower that had 5 divisions in its base, and those divisions would represent the 5 decades of the city's history. And above that base would be perhaps a futuristic material, maybe stainless steel or something that would extend toward the sky. And then we recognized the need for there to be something at the base of the tower, because the tower standing alone didn't do enough either to, as an object, or to define the space of the amphitheater. So we developed the outdoor room at its base. We imagined that outdoor room could be used as a classroom for the elementary school kids that are just adjacent to the tower, that it could be used as a place for city staff to come out and commingle during the lunch hour and enjoy and relax outside in the shade on a sunny day. So the idea of the tower as something quite different from just a clock tower began to mature. First began to think of it as this sundial element. We invested all these features into it that describe the room at its base, the several divisions that represent the history of the community, this spire which extends in a very narrow manner up to the sky, up to infinity in a sense, and then the spine that supports it. This was the first model that represented that idea of the tower as a sundial feature. It was a little bit too fragile to share, and we wanted to develop the idea. But first we wanted to contrast it, I should say, against something that was a little bit more of the expected sort of thing. And because we had a project budget, we had to think of this in real terms, and what kind of traditional tower we could possibly build with the budget that we had. And we conceived a tower that was designed of precast concrete panels that were laid and leaned together, that again referenced history, but was somewhat modern in its design. That's what this represented here. Now, what this also gave us, this tower right here, is a point of reference now to continue the development of the sundial. And as a method of architectural argument, sometimes it's good to present a design that you don't necessarily favor, but which you can contrast your favored design against, so that you have a sort of a point and counterpoint kind of argument between the two models. So this is another derivation of this model here, but it began to show some of the more important features. Plaques plaques, for instance, that would include historical references to what happened in the 1950s, what happened in the 60s, what happened in the 70s, and so forth. And then the base was thought of as maybe a very rough material being transformed into something smooth, and then finally into something that was very futuristic, that would extend toward the sky and toward the future, in a sense. So this model was the mature representation of some of those ideas. And then finally, we thought that, actually it was Brad Reed's idea, that some of that complexity should be removed from the design, so that it would be more constructible, so that it would be more believable, simpler, and so that we could achieve its construction within a reasonable budget. So this particular model then began to take the place of this one here. And so this is the model that became adopted by the City Council and was tested by them and by the Plan Commission as the one to be accepted for construction. So as you can see, we simplified it so that it became a stone mast here, which transitioned from rough stone to the smooth stone that you see at the top. And that was leaned against, in a sense, this concrete spine which supports it. And they tend to play against each other in the actual monument that's out there right now.
The materials used on the tower are somewhat unique to Coppell. What was the thought process behind this?
Recall my reference to the other towers that we had seen around Dallas. They tend to, a large number of them tend to conceal their structure. We might see a veneer of stone or a veneer of brick, but we can't really tell what's behind that skin. And we wanted to avoid that in this particular tower, because we believe that each part of it should be as honestly expressed as it could possibly be. And so the structure is composed of a concrete spine, as I call it, and that spine is constructed of board-formed concrete, so that all of the sort of the handwork and the handiwork and the labor that is invested in constructing that spine is represented in those boards, that formwork that's seen in that feature. The concrete spine of this tower is the same color as the columns on the town center building, and we wanted to use that as a reference for connecting the two together. The material that's a little bit foreign to the plaza is the limestone itself. However, limestone is native to Texas, and so we thought that limestone would be an appropriate material. Now, back to the city's requirements, their architectural guidelines where brick is used to a large degree, and also dressed stone. We, in our effort to make it different, argued that the stone should be a little bit different, even though it might be some of the same stone that's used in other buildings around town. And so we selected this rough back material that has this rough face and rough finish to it. That material is obtained from the ground, and when it's drawn from the ground, it's laid in the ground in seams or in plates, and when those are pulled out, what you see after it's washed off is this rough face. And so it's that natural face that we wanted to see. It's not seen very often in public architecture, but it's what we thought would set this tower, be one of those things that set this tower apart. So again, as we progress from the ground, we have divided the tower into 5 parts, representing, and you'll see it out there, but it's been made so much more subtle just by a simple dressing a bevel onto the edge of that stone at a certain set of increments. But above that, there's a highly finished piece of set of limestone pieces that again represent that future, that idea of this is the past, this is the future, this is where we're going.